Hello! Welcome back to another video, you guys. If you didn't see my last video, go and check it out because I got scammed. Luckily, I got a new one that came, and these are all of my repeats and ones that don't fit into my collection because I've already got them, and yeah, they're filled quite a lot. But yeah, I've almost completed the collection now. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. Go and check out my new channel when it is active. I will link it in the description in the future, I promise. But it's called Sealed for Viewing. If you didn't see my last video, go and check it out. I'll explain it a bit more there. Anyway, let's just jump right into today's video, and we're looking at some weird and wonderful things on the internet. So, what's today's weird and wonderful thing? Abdul sounds like an Arabic name. ABDL. Abdul. I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not too sure. But it stands for Adult Baby Diaper Lover. Yeah, we're looking at a thing commonly known as infantism, where a particular person, can be male or female, sees themselves as an infant, either the same gender or slightly different. I don't know if non-binaries do this either, but we'll look. Okay, so I did a lot of preparation for this video. I've been trying to make this video for months. It just hasn't felt like the right time to do it. So I thought now was a good enough time. I have been talking to somebody who's relatively big in the Abdul community. I've been talking on Instagram a lot. She has requested for me not to mention who she is, but she's more than happy for me to give her opinion on the whole thing. And yeah, we're gonna look at Abdul as a whole. I'm gonna give my opinion, and I'm gonna read off some of the things that she's answered. Just throwing that out there just in case she is watching, and if you are watching, thank you so much for your help in giving me a better understanding of this. And I am trying to look at this as open-mindedly as possible, so if you're quite a close-minded person, I would recommend you don't watch the rest of this video. Okay, so with Abdul, they're often categorized into dominant and submissive, and then in the middle there is known as a switch. Dominant and submissive are abbreviated to dom and sub, but quite often dominant and submissive are abbreviated into dom and sub. So I'll be referring to them as that for this video, just so it's less of a mouthful for me to speak. But it is often divided into dom and sub. Subs often being the littles known as little or baby. It's totally up to them, or they don't really use the term adult baby for themselves. They often call themselves littles, which is the person who I spoke to. She is a little, and she is very well known. I apologise if you can hear barking as well. Got a bit of a week's trial with a dog, and the dog really wants to come in because it loves me, and I've had to shut it out for this video. Anyway, segueing back onto track. The doms are known as either mummy or daddy. There's not really an in-between. Oh, actually there is. I tell a lie. There is such thing as a caregiver, somebody who will actually take care of littles who don't have a mummy or a daddy. And I think that's kind of sweet in some way, like the fact that somebody out there is willing to look after somebody in this situation where they want to be a little one. Some people like to play the ages between newborn and 3, others kind of like 3 to 6, or even anywhere from newborn to about 6, 7. They don't tend to go higher than that. I've noticed from research. That's solely just from briefly looking at things, so don't quote me on that. Now, there are tons of websites that cater to this. There is a lot of things on Amazon I found. Obviously, doing my research, I wanted to see where these goods were purchased and what can happen with them. In America, there actually are stores dedicated to this. Adult nappies aren't really that hard to find. So, like, you know, all you have to do is get an adult nappy. If you want kind of the more baby style nappies in the adult sizes, that's when you have to go online. It's a very expensive interest though. I've noticed it's very, very expensive. So with the littles, they can dress up as a baby, they can obviously wear nappies, have like being bottle fed, some eat baby food. I don't know why you'd eat baby food, because as far as I'm aware, as we got older, we're not really meant to consume that. Our bodies have a bit more trouble digesting that compared to actual stuff. Like I've heard apparently that it's worse than prison food. I don't know for sure, but that's again from research. But some people do it. and you know, it's not hurting anyone. It is a bit of an awkward little world to be in, like, especially if you are in that situation as well, where you feel little other people must be so judgmental of you. So you are brave for coming out and liking it and stuff, and you know, you have to accept it in some way, because it's not affecting anyone else in any way. The only people it will be affecting is your partner, but if they're totally cool with that and they're into that as well, then even better for them. So, you know, it is what it is. Some dress up full time, some don't. Some just wear nappies under what they would normally wear, and at their own age they just act a little. Some just act a little bit vulnerable, and they like the embarrassment of it and like being forced to be little, which is quite a big kink in itself. Some see it as a very big sexual kink, and this is often commonly known as, but can be misunderstood at the same time, as age play, and where they role play as different ages, and they often get accused of being like paedophiles and stuff for this age play. But the one I spoke to has said that it's only a very small amount of people in this community that actually see it as a sexual preference and see it as a kink, and most people actually just do it because it is innocent, it's nice for them. So from what I've read, apparently if they feel that they've had not a very good upbringing, they kind of want to go back to their childhood and kind of just recreate something for them, which in turn is this little space where it's their own little bubble where they can feel as young as they want, as old as they want, they can do what they want, and nobody, like, it's just carefree. It's just them and somebody else. It could be caregiver, mummy, daddy, whatever. You get little boys with daddies, little girls with mummies, and you even get trans that are like little boys who want to be little girls, or boys that want to be mummies, and then girls who want to be daddies and girls who want to be little girls. So it is a very open community. They don't tend to discriminate against each other. There is a lot of there's a lot more littles than adults out there in this community. It's a lot harder to find, apparently, from research. I spoke to another person, and he is a daddy, but he has found more commonly that the only adults out there are other men. It's really hard to find a female dominant, because quite often at the time, without sounding stereotypical, they are the submissive ones. And yeah, it is mostly daddy doms, I think that's the correct term for it. But yeah, it is most often them that are the dominant ones. It is hard to find the opposite gender, but sometimes it does happen. There are ones out there. It's mostly littles. It's mostly a bunch of people from any age really, from like 13 up, where they just want to be young. And I can understand some people see it as really creepy, and like they accuse them of being things like paedophiles and things like that, and it's wrong. They shouldn't accuse them of being that. If they want to feel little, they can be little. It's not affecting anybody else, so I don't see why they have to criticize them. If they want to do it behind closed doors and maybe out in public, good for them. They're being confident, they're themselves. They want to feel little and innocent. I suppose when you're younger as well, they do say your best years are your youth, when you don't have much to care about. Like when I was little, I wouldn't dream of making videos and stuff. But even these littles, like obviously they act little, but they've still got responsibilities. Half of them have YouTube channels, and it is a huge community as well. And I would just like to preach right now, just to get this disclaimer out there, don't go and hate on their channels. It's not fair. Hating's wrong, because this is such a vulnerable community. It's very easy to offend people, and words hurt, comments hurt, I know from experience. I'm just trying to look at this with a big open mind as well. I'm looking at it from both sides. I can understand why they do it, I just don't like it myself. Anyway, let's dive into these questions that I asked. So I asked questions such as, what is it that appeals to people mostly about Abdul? Like what's your opinion of it overall? Do you think people could be more accepting? And things like that. And this is her response to this. Abdul is different for different people. Generally, there are those that do it for kicks and those who do it because they have regressive personalities. It can be a way to be looked after and cared for and completely safe and secure, and many feel the same way about doing this. Some because they lack the childhood, because they never quite grew up. Like, that is basically my opinion in a nutshell. You know, it's somebody who had lack of a childhood, or they didn't want to grow up quite yet, so they want to feel that youthful and regress back to that age, which is great for them because it means that they get a second chance at growing up a little bit. And then some people do grow out of this stage, some people don't. I saw people well into their 60s that are still doing this, and that's understandable. You know, if you want to feel youthful again, that's fine. So people are doing this well into their older ages. There was a 52-year-old man, he was a dad, a father, a husband, and he was a transgender. But then he abandoned his family and got adopted by 2 other people, and now he lives as a 6-year-old girl. So people are doing this all over the place at all ages. It doesn't discriminate, which is nice of a community, the fact that they don't discriminate. If you go onto some other communities, they will completely trash everything else, but this community is very accepting of who you are, which I think is a really big positive. If you are into this, at least you're in a nice community where it's all friendly. And obviously it is split into the sexual side and the non-sexual side. Honestly, I'm gonna just say this now, I think it's wrong, the sexual side to it all. That doesn't cross my mind. I hate the thought of that. I don't know why. If you're into that and you're watching this, I'm really sorry. It's just not what in my head, I see that as wrong for myself. But if you think it's okay and you've obviously got consent from the other person, then you do what you want. If it doesn't hurt anyone, it's fine. When asked for her opinion, and she actually touched upon how people have responded to her, like, you know, in some ways where it's like, you know, they jump to paedophile straight away, and it is wrong because sometimes it's not always the case. People can be very quick to judge with things that they don't quite know. She then later goes on to say about like how her channel originally was just her own little kind of escape, and then she's ended up turning into an advice channel for people who are just coming into this community, which is very good because it must be frightening if you've been having these thoughts where you're like, you know, I want to be, you know, I want to wear a nappy all the time, I want to crawl around sucking a pacifier and being bottle fed and stuff. It must be scary having those thoughts, because in today's society you must think that's not normal. You've got it, and you get it drilled into your own head saying that that's not normal, when there's a whole community out there that will help you with that, and they will guide you through it. And things like this girl that I've been speaking to, it's really hard not to say your name, but she's a lovely girl, and I've saw a few of her videos to get a bit of a background. She does give really good advice for them, and she does like reviews on different things, so if you're into that, you probably know who I'm talking about. I think nearly everyone in that community knows who she is, and I'm really thankful that she could give me a bit of an insight and information of the community overall. And yeah, I think that's about concludes all the information about all of this. It's definitely on the weird side, but it's kind of, the weird side overall is the fact that they're babies. That's like, it is weird to somebody who's not into that. It's like ASMR. If you don't get triggered, it's very weird because it's somebody whispering into a microphone, and it makes people feel uncomfortable, and when it's out of context, and I think it applies to this as well, out of context, it just looks wrong on all levels. But when you actually dive in deeper, look at some of the psychology behind it and why they do this, it becomes a lot more clear. It's not as wrong as what people make out to be, and the wonderful side to it is the fact that it's a really nice community. They're all there for each other, they're all really supportive, and you know what, I'm actually glad that it's a nice community, because if people do feel like they're having these wrong thoughts and they're not, like, they're very insecure about these thoughts that they've got a really nice community to reassure them, which is really nice. That about concludes it for this video. I do apologise if I've gone off on a few tangents and repeated myself a little bit. It was weird making this video. I really want to do more weird and wonderful things where I look at the weird and wonderful side of a certain topic. If you didn't see my ASMR video, I will link it at the end of this. And yeah, hope you enjoyed last week's video as well. Sorry it wasn't the best, but I thought to myself, instead of making this then, I would make this the next week. Anyway, enjoy your Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and I shall see you next Friday.